So now we are recording.
Yeah, back with another episode.
Yeah. So we were talking
Um,
about the amazingness of modern day road.
yeah,
Yeah.
um, so I guess a little bit of context to start this episode was I think we often underappreciate the kind of work of so many people that are kind of faceless to us, to be
Mm.
honest. We don't know them. They're definitely not that well known to the society.
Mm-hmm.
People who are in the cleaning, maintenance type of work all around us,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't really enjoy that much of a stature with their line of work.
Mm.
And typically, you do not find young, you know, aspiring uh, young people to want to work in those roles. Um, a few examples: people who sweep the street,
Mm.
right? People who clean public utilities,
Mm.
including toilets,
Include
and
toilet.
other
Yeah.
things. Um, there's
Farmers.
another category. Hmm?
Farmers.
Farmers, yeah, oh,
Yeah.
big time.
Big time.
Had it not been for them, where would the bankers get their sandwiches from, right?
Yeah.
Who is more important, the bankers
Right.
or the farmers? Without the farmers, the bankers will be starved to
That's what
death.
I'm saying.
There will be no bank, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's get the orders right. yeah.
Oh, like I always feel that way. Like I was debating with like Alex the other day. He's like,
yeah.
who is more essential, to the world? Like if we have to sort of restructure the economy per se. Okay, a topic that is obviously too big for a couple that have no economic background to talk about, but that's what we do. We just talk about things that we are completely under sort of like do not have the right to talk about, I suppose. But and then we were talking about like how is it the case that like we're not like the whole economy is so skewed toward finance, making money work essentially, uh, keeping the money flowing than to keep the material flowing. I'm talking about logistic. I'm talking about actual manufacturing. I'm talking about recycling too, reusing the waste. I'm talking about farming. All this production activity, it doesn't seem to have as much appreciation as the money game. And then I will talk about how do we get to this point. Like, I'm not condemning it per se. I mean, I
Mhm.
understand the power of investment. I was looking into like the Team C. You know what that is?
Team C.
Yeah. So there was this guy called Mr. Beast, which is quite famous in YouTube actually. And he did a event called hashtag Team C, this ocean, right? And what it does is that it's trying to fund how do I say it? Collect money. How do I say that? They try to raise money, right?
Raise
Raise
funds.
money, raise funds for ocean cleanups. Sorry, so for cleaning up oceans, and they partner with a company called Ocean Cleanup to remove plastic from the ocean, right? Which they did. They're saying essentially for every dollar that they collected, they will remove a ton of it, a ton of plastic from the ocean, and they actually did that. And I understand the power of in that software. I understand the power of money, right? Without money, without that scale, we can't collect the effort to coordinate such a big scale event. So I could give where it's due, but still, the actual doing of that should be more important than the money itself, right? The actual creation of the product should be more important than the money itself. But it seems like, at least I didn't care about it until I learned about it. But it seems like we're always so lost in the money game. So, being a guy that worked in finance for so many years, like I was wondering, what is your insight on this?
It goes back a lot further back from where we are today. We
Okay,
we didn't we didn't just get here. We've
yeah,
been here for a little while. um,
4,000 years or five depends on.
a little bit less than that,
Okay.
but the severity has definitely gone up, right? Uh, just the disproportionate interest and the concentration of talent that could have been otherwise deployed to other areas, which is another topic I think very interesting to talk about. But I remember which kind of other category. People like who is maintaining the, let's say, the MTR, right?
Oh yeah,
tracks,
not
the
flooding
tracks, the train, leaves on the tracks, branches. They literally walk while we sleep on the track every night, checking, right?
Oh yeah.
Because there's no other way to do it. I wish we could invent technology that helped them with, at night, let's get the drones out, to do infrared, inspection on these tracks and just, beam back the data on an exceptional basis so that the people can just directly go to that spot to fix that thing. Because at the moment, you have people that shines torches, in teams of 2 or 3 that goes out and walk the track every night. And then, they would then have to check multiple point checklists for every single train at night, after, they parked. And that the gap of the cease of service isn't for that long. It's like only 6 hours, right?
Yeah.
And within that 6 hours, you have to make sure the other 18 hours work perfectly. Like spending 6 hours to make 18 hours work. That's 3 times the amount of time, right? I know it may not be a sensible way to look at it, but I think it just gives you an idea of the intensity of the work and the responsibility that is bestowed upon their shoulders to make it work. And I have been living in other cities, in other parts of my life, other stages of my life. I can tell you the speed and efficiency of the Hong Kong's MTR is better by none.
Oh.
It is the best.
It's the best. I'm proud of that, actually.
I mean, you think about peak hour traffic, Kwun Tong line, going to Central, and we're talking about 10 to 15 seconds per train. At that level of frequency, right? And the trains are just, they have to be spick and span, right? And every 1 second delay from the closing of the door has a huge chain effect on the rest of it, okay? And the signaling and all of that kind of thing, because there's a whole lot, you probably know that too. The train, cross track and all those kind of things under the ground, we don't see it, right? But things do happen. And people complain about trains that may be a few seconds late, 10 seconds late, 20 seconds late. And when you get into the train, you often get a notification that, this is now April. And in April, we have only 2 services that were out for more than half an hour. This compares, last year we had 3. Small improvement, we will do better. Yeah. I mean, for a company that already delivered that kind of level of world-class service has to apologize for having the service down twice. That is over 30 minutes, right? Okay, I know it is a big thing, but please have some perspective that globally you are on the best service, not just one of this is the best when it comes to efficiency, right? And it's not that costly, relatively speaking, to what you get from it, right? Hong Kong, with the density, with the problem with the road, if you actually try to travel by car, if you try to make a meeting on time, there is no better way to use the MTR. It is almost guaranteed all the time.
Most reliable.
Right?
Definitely. Yeah.
You have a budget of time. You have like back-to-back meetings. You got to be there absolutely on that day, on that dot. Boom. You factor in the walking distance. You factor in the the door-to-door time. Almost all the time. Bang. You're bang on time. Yeah. And that just allows increased amount of productivity that people do not appreciate because they've gotten so used to it.
Oh yeah.
So this is a call out to, you know, all of the people who work in MTR, all of the engineers, the maintenance guys. A big thank you to you, all of you, and we appreciate you, and keep up the good work. And you know, thank God to you doing what you do. We get to enjoy the service that we do. Also, go out to all the bus drivers also, and so
Bus drivers, every maintenance guy that is actually keeping the world running, literally.
Yeah. And then we'll go back to that topic about, you know, finance. Why is it that making money gets paid a lot more than other people doing other things to make, let's say an honest day of working, right? Well, I think it has to do with the fact that money is the most freely convertible medium of exchange of value. Therefore, if you're in the process of creating money itself, there is a premium attached to that. But if you're using service in exchange for money, then the relative value of that function is being artificially compressed or reduced, or you know, disproportionately lowered, as opposed to using money to make money. Okay. Using money to make money has one advantage: speed.
Okay.
Think of buying a stock. Went up 10% today. You put 100 million into that. Bang. You got 10 million just in a day's work. Now, if you have that capability, you're worth a lot more to me than someone who's making a cake. So I'll pay you more. A lot more. Because if I own a cake shop, how many cakes do I have to make in order to make that money? God, I don't even know if I was able to make that money at all.
True.
Even if I have $100 million invested in cake shops. Okay. So the reason why it's disproportionate has to do with the fact that it is a so-called free market. You don't have to have a reason or a justification to trade. You just need to have money. So in a way, it is not that different than a casino. I'm talking about the way it operates. Okay.
The unpredictability and volatility of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also there is the market isn't totally a set of rule and equations that you can kind of control.
Right? Sentiment. So yeah.
Exactly. There are many people who contribute to that, and you do not control, and you definitely do not know all of them, why they do certain things and how much they're doing it for. So it's a bit of a black box. And when people are looking at chances of a price movement up or down, they see opportunities. They take a position, they take a view. One of them is going to be right. So if you have a guy that demonstrates that he's more right than wrong, you're going to pay him a sizable amount of money to service you and look at your wealth. And so then what does that mean? Well, I speak to a lot of finance students, right? Because I coach them for career directions. It is not just now, but it's been there for a while, that finance graduates has been in an oversupply situation for a while now. Okay.
Everyone in Hong Kong wants to do that.
Right. Now, just a little piece of statistics. I think it goes back to 2015 when I last checked it. It was a public available information from Hong Kong government.
Census, right?
No, it wasn't census.
Really?
It was from, I forgot the department, but
Statistic
it was,
department.
yeah. So I was trying to break down the GDP of Hong Kong and looking at what contributes to the GDP. What industry, right, that has the concentration. So the highest concentration is, not surprisingly, banking and finance.
It's Hong Kong after all.
Yeah, at about 19%. So 19% of our GDP comes from banking and finance related services, out of which within the 19, about 6% comes from insurance related and 13 comes from banking related. Okay. And then you have other three pillars, which is logistics, retail, that includes tourism, and then the fourth category would be professional service, like, accounting, law, consulting, those kind of things, right? So these four categories in total make up just less than half of Hong Kong's GDP.
Only less than half.
Just less than half. And the other 50% would be consumption, small businesses, so on and so forth.
I see. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing is, well, for each percentage of GDP point that this industry contribute, how many percentage of the employable workforce do they employ to make that contribution in GDP? Okay. Now, for the rest of so I'm not going to talk about banking and finance first. For the rest of the stuff, it's almost on a 1-to-1 ratio. So if they contribute to 10% GDP, they roughly employ 10% of the workforce.
That's fair. I mean, it should be the case, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Now, banking and finance. This ratio is not 1-to-1, or not nowhere even close to 1-to-1. Okay.
I can imagine that already. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you what it is.
Okay.
So 19% of GDP employing a total of 2.9% of the workforce. Think of the multiple.
1 to 10 almost.
Yeah. Well, less than that. But
less than that, but like almost.
Maybe 1 to 8. Yeah.
1 to 8, yeah.
Which is massively deviating from the norm. Okay. So what it means is that the finance and banking industry is not a labor-intensive industry. It's a capital-intensive industry. And it only employ enough relevant, productive people, as few as possible, to make that ratio as large as possible, so that everybody makes more. And it perpetuates itself. Okay. So the people who are running the banks would try to say, well, I'm going to set up a department to invest. What is the minimum number of traders can I have to manage this pool of money to generate the optimal return? I don't want to employ any one more than necessary, right? And now the situation for oversupply worsens over time, because 10 years ago, when everybody's trading with their hands and mouth and a phone, today everybody trades with their fingers.
Nap.
No phones, just a screen and your finger. Okay. Gone are the days of asymmetric information where I know something you don't, and therefore I have a value if you want something that I have that you don't. But ever since the advance of electronic trading, market data feed, which you pay for, but not excessively, right?
It's not that expensive.
You have almost the same level of access of information as everybody else. So the asymmetric advantage erodes away gradually. You still have some advantage of a faster machine, faster line, faster connection to the exchange, but it's not massively so much so that you're guaranteed that with that information you're going to win all the time. So then it levels out the market, it levels out the participant. Okay. So what it means is that it's harder to generate that outsized return. So if I generate less return, I can only afford to employ less people. So, and also the machine also has another function, which is making the process more efficient. So, which is easier to understand. So machine does the work that someone from the university graduate used to do. Now I need less university graduate. So they don't get to promote up the rank to this, that, another. So my overall size have shrunken as a result. So then you think about, okay, well, how did the oversupply situation come about? Don't we know? I mean, if we only know that there's only this many positions, why would everybody just put their head in the sand and say, okay, I still am going to do finance, assuming there's going to be something out there, right?
Yeah.
Well, because there is a time lag between when you choose a degree than when you finish. You start the degree 4 years ago if you're finishing today. 4 years ago was probably a very different world. 4 years ago, there was probably a chance that the demand would still be there, relatively. But 4 years later, and don't forget, right? 4 years ago, everybody thinks like you. Everybody thinks that there's demand, so they all do it, right? 4 years later, all of a sudden, they could not believe how quickly technology has moved on. They could not believe how quickly electronic trading has been taken up by the market participants.
That wasn't there 4 years ago?
It was far less well adopted.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'm not talking about 4 years ago right now. I'm saying, stretches of 4 years, every 4 years.
Every 4 years, yeah.
On a rolling basis, okay?
Yeah.
As every year goes by, another 4 years in advance, another 4 years in, because you're dealing with 4 years worth of change, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
Right? 4 years worth of change is always massive, and as it gets closer to present, the change gets steeper for every single 4 year. Okay? Because think about the compound effect of, first of all, the internet arriving 25 years ago. Then you got mobile internet 12 years ago. Then you got social network software about 8 years ago. And now you got a combination of all of those things coming together, and a number of new users who are contributing to the overall volume of traffic, flow, information, participation, okay, which grow the overall pie, but also allow technology to actually come in and automate a number of things, like algorithm, quantitative trading, okay? So now that you have AI, big data, and a whole lot of other things that comes in to streamline the actual analysis function, trading signal, when should I buy, when should I sell, and you basically sit down a guy who's very smart, and you sit this guy down with a computer programmer, with someone like me in the middle, translating what the
computer guy want to say,
right? Yeah. What does a trader mean to the computer guy, and saying, okay, well, in your language, it probably means this, right? You sit these guys down for a few days, download the trader's brain onto how the algorithm is going to work, get the computer guy to work, builds a prototype, test on the market, and the test data, see how it works, and then parallel runs it, and then you start to measure the real performance versus the trader's performance. As soon as over a longer period of time, it is matching or exceeds, the trader's done. It's toast. Right? Now apply that to all positions at all banks. How difficult is it? It's not once you've done one.
It's once you have one, then everyone is doomed. The kind of situation, right?
Yeah. Because you can back test, you can do regression tests. It's data, it's computer. How much is the cost of doing a test? Nothing. You just run it. You go to sleep. You come back tomorrow and give you a result. There is no cost in implementing technology. Well, there's not that there's no cost. The cost is not massively unreachable, right? You need computer engineers for sure. You need quant people who understand the market language for sure. You need time to bring them together, complete the story for sure. But if you're dedicating an amount of money to make it work, the payback is for certain. You'll be saving a head count. How much is a head count? $1 million, give or take, traders, right? Maybe more on a good year. But now you don't have to deal with emotions, volatility, going on holidays, moaning about not getting, promoted, wife is having a baby, dog's dying, they need to move out to another country to, for his son to school, and so he's got to leave. All of that goes away. You now have this faithfully, loyal machine that only asks for electricity.
Which is cheap.
Relatively, yeah. And you need a bunch of computer engineers that can look after a number of machines.
Which are also
different
cheap.
strategies, right?
Yeah.
This machine is responsible for stock. This machine is responsible for bonds. That machine is for FX. That machine is for commodity. That one trades Bitcoin. So, where are the demand for labor?
Okay.
The demand of labor is in the technology sector that comes in and help me make more money cheaper, faster. So it's swapped. So instead of getting people to come in and do trading, of course there are still those, but I'm saying the demand is reducing on that front and demand is increasing on the other front, which is deploying technology and makes it work in the changing financial landscape.
Mm.
And so those people will now be getting paid a lot more money. The quant guys will get paid a lot more money. But it's an acquired taste, right? It's not for everyone. Just like not everyone likes to eat, Brussels sprouts. Has a certain benefit, sure, but it's not for everyone.
Sorry, like acquired taste for
being a quant guy, let's say.
Okay.
To study quant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to be a good quant guy and how to swim in and out of two different worlds, the market dynamics and the computing technology, programming, coding, okay? Because there is a human element and a computer element. You need to be fusing the two things to make it work. And you got to be sensitive enough to watch, okay, well, is it working? Is it making money? If it's not making money, I've got to go back and see. There is a stranger thing, which is, so this algorithm also has a mind of its own. So when you code these algorithms, you put in parameters. What do I watch out for? When this goes up and that goes down and that goes down, what does that mean? Right? So you have a number of parameters. So the traders would tell them, okay, I would want you to put in a weighting of this. When that goes up, then look at this thing. If that also goes up and it goes down like this for a length of time, then I think that's good. So things like that, right?
Okay.
Each trade is different. And so then there is an element of prediction, as you can imagine. Okay. Now, a trader, part of the trader's senses is to sense what the market is doing, at what point, how would the market behave at what point. And that has an element of guessing what other people in the markets are doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, that's what it implied, right?
What investing at all time is.
Right? Mm-hmm. So he's saying, okay, well, what I do know is that there's a bunch of fund managers, and the fund managers are fairly conservative. They have a fairly rigid way of trading. They always follow the trend. They always, diversify. They like buying the indexes instead of picking stocks. So I'm going to think that, okay,
yeah, isn't that? Yeah.
Right. So you have a whole lot of these things that he predicts, and it goes into the quantitative machine as part of the parameters to watch out for. So you are guessing what someone else is doing, but here's a marketplace. Someone else is guessing what you're doing too, because you're just another market participant to another market participant. Okay, so there is a constant guessing loop. Everybody's guessing what everybody else is doing. Okay, now it's almost like a looping error in the spreadsheet. Okay, that there's a circular equation that doesn't work, right? At some point, right? And that's why market tends to overbuy and oversell. when it reacts to an event.
Uh,
Because when an event comes, most of the quant guy are, because they're good at what they do, they probably come to similar conclusions. Okay? And when they come to similar conclusions, they act in concert. The first guy who acts in concert probably is right. The last guy who acts in concert probably overdone it. The problem is, because it is quant, because you don't touch the machine does it by itself. And everybody does it within the same second. It's just a fraction of a second different from each other.
it's stock
So,
market. Phew.
right?
Yeah.
We're talking about thousands of, maybe tens of thousands of transactions per second
Mm.
that it can handle. So now you can imagine, within a few seconds, it's just a cliff top. Well, does it make sense? What did this company do? The company is still making this yesterday, and it's still making those today, and it's still selling as much, and it's still selling at the same price. What? Why is this happening to the trade price? The share price, right?
So then,
Because it's
mhm.
right because it's not. That's not the way you should look at the stock market.
And it's
Stock market.
over-evaluation.
Yeah, the day-to-day prices of the stock market is almost like a vote.
Mm.
You vote differently every day. Depends on your mood. Okay, depends on what someone else thinks, and depends on how you are impacted by other people, and depends on whether you have a very short-term duration with your trading, right? Because there is no limit. You can trade within a day. You can trade within a few hours. You can trade within a few minutes. You're free, right? And because how free it is, and you are accommodating all sorts of types of traders at different time duration, and just adds the complexity to it. Okay. However, going back to the topic of why we pay people in finance more than a guy who is farming, maintaining the tracks, looking at our existential safety and the existence itself in terms of food and water and all of those kind of things, is because of the efficiency of generating money being the more obvious benchmark of reward. It's a very, crooked way of looking at it, but that's how it transpired in capitalism, so to speak. Yeah.
Well, without touching ideology too much, I agree with the complexity of the market and the complexity of what the finance guy, and now including the IT guy, have to do. I do admire that. Don't get me wrong. I do think what they're doing are difficult in the sense that in a highly competitive market, they have to keep themselves afloat. Not only you have to do a job well, you have to, make sure that you can navigate around people and navigate around the landscape, navigate around the career, navigate around the environment. Now we have places like Reddit come into trade and then break the market for you. It's sort of a difficult job to do. That I do agree. So for how difficult it is, it ought to get paid. But I guess it's still one of the questions in mind, right? Like when you're talking about it, and this guessing game of ours, this guessing game of how much the other company is worth, and this investment, that it's continuation of flow of money and investment and money generation. Yes, it does. It does make the economy move, but I'm always wondering, that's why I also want to know, right? What does it generate for us, and what do we get out of this as a society for people to keep this money moving? Because I imagine a society where, let's say, that is gone, right? Let's say the finance industry are stripped to the basic function of banking, and the banking doesn't have a multiplier where you save $1 and then you have $1. Let's say that magical institution exists under government control, and there's no investment and this and that, right? I can see how there will be difficulty to raise fund to start any operation, to That, I mean, that will be more difficult. I agree with that. But other than the ease of starting a business, or actually not really that easy either, but other than that, what do we get out of this guessing game? You know, we don't get a kick out of it. We don't get a well-rate track that is lubricated and well maintained. We don't get we don't get to actually enjoy much of it, or do we actually get to enjoy it that I just didn't realize? That is sort of what I real well, sort of what I want to know, because
Yeah,
I struggle to grasp with that really.
sure. I mean, many people do. Um,
Mm,
so there is a deeper element to this.
mm-hmm,
Imagine there are many more people who participate in the market for different reasons. Okay,
mm-hmm,
so some come here to raise capital to make a product, make a
mm-hmm,
service. Uh, so they start a company and they want to scale it. Now they can't scale it unless they have a massive amount of capital that is stable. So they take it to IPO, right?
mm-hmm.
Bring it to the
Yeah,
market,
market, yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm,
When the time is right, and they're going to raise a lot of money, and that amount of money will sit into the company's account for R&D, for building new offices, new production line, blah blah blah. The result of that is a more scaled product,
mm-hmm.
hopefully at a lower cost, and therefore popularizing access of the product to people like us. And I
Fair.
think we can see the benefit of that, which you saw as part of the function, and you were right.
Mm-hmm,
Now think about once those shares has been sold to these investors. So let's say you and I bought a share in Alibaba when it first came, and
mm-hmm,
now we enjoy Taobao. We enjoy a whole lot of things that, you know, without which they wouldn't have scaled up that much,
mm-hmm.
and give us literally saves us because without this particular model, think about how we're going to handle the pandemic,
Oh yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm,
Um, I was talking to someone else yesterday. If the pandemic happened 5 years before, I think I can't even imagine what state of play we'll be in terms of disruption to work, access to quality, high bandwidth internet,
mm-hmm,
generally across all the world in
mm-hmm,
most major cities at a very affordable cost, hardware on computers that has good enough, camera, microphone to do something like what we're doing today, you know, at a very affordable cost. Um, Education of people and ability for them to navigate and use these software, in a competent way,
mm-hmm.
so on and so forth. So that's one. Now, but if we are the investors, uh, we may not want to be investing in this company forever. So at some point, I want to get out. Now, if it is only me and another investor who is as long term as I am, I may not be able to get out because that guy didn't want to sell. Okay. So basically, you have in between these people, okay, what we call people who are market makers.
Mm-hmm.
And you can call them traders. So roughly, loosely, they do similar things, which is they look at trading opportunities in a shorter term. So it's not really investment. They're not looking to hold it for long term. Short term means, from within a day to, let's say, anything within 3 months, right? They
Mm-hmm.
take a position, they take a view. Maybe they foresee that there's a worsening of geopolitics and price is going to come crumbling down or going up or whatever, okay? So these people would actively trade the market. They buy or sell, okay? And those creates what we call liquidity. Liquidity is basically a movement where it allows other people to get in and out within a reasonable price band.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't have those guys and no one wants to sell, the market may be trading at $110, but as soon as I put a sell order in, the market goes to 105 because the buyer is not willing to sell me at 109.
Mm-hmm.
He's only willing to buy me at buy at 105. So what we call that is the spread between the buy and sell, the bid and
Mm-hmm.
offer price, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you don't have an actively traded stock and there is no active trading community to facilitate the buy and sell of these orders, then I would get in and out at a far worse price than I would prefer. So
Because it's
therefore,
too slow.
but
Okay.
not too slow.
So,
There's no natural supply and demand
oh,
of
right.
long-term investors. If it's
Mm,
just long-term investors without these guys coming in, because you're asking, Kevin, what about these guys are just coming in the market? What are their value? Why do they exist? Why do we need them? How do we, normal Joes benefit from their existence? Because
mm,
it sounds like they're just ripping everybody off for trading, you know, cents and dollars, and they make hundreds of, millions of dollars in profit. And what do they contribute back to
mm-hmm,
the society at
mm-hmm,
large? What they contribute is liquidity, which is a concept whereby any investor can get in and out at or around the market price right now.
fair.
Without them, you may get out, but not at the price you want, or you may have to wait a lot longer to get to the price that you want.
Because no one is buying and selling.
Right. You may not.
You
Right.
may not. Yeah.
Sometimes you may, sometimes you may not. So it's not a certainty that you can count on. So that means then this particular product, which is a stock, becomes what we call less liquid. Meaning that, let's say you use your stock as a collateral to borrow money from the bank.
Mm-hmm.
Now the bank will look at the stock and look at, well, how volatile is the share price? And therefore I'm going to discount the value of your stock for the collateral value. So you give me $100 worth of stock. I'm not going to give you $100 worth of loan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to only give you 50 because I need to keep some space just in case the stock might drop, right? Not like a house. Stock is more volatile than a house, right?
Yeah.
So if the stock is able to be liquidated within a short time at a price close to the market, I have far more confidence of the actual value of the stock as a collateral or as an investment. Okay. And I would favor that over other investments that are less liquid. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So an investment that is less liquid does not mean that they're less valuable. It just means that it takes me more time to convert it back to cash.
It costs me more to actually earn from it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It takes me more time, and the price may not be as ideal as I would like it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a cost to liquidation. The cost of liquidation is more minimal if I have active trading parties that ensures that bid and offer price is very close to the prevailing market price.
Okay.
So on the day that I decide to go at 109, if I put a sell market order out there, I have a much better chance of getting somewhere close to 109 and not waiting for 105.
True.
Okay. So that is one big, at least they self-proclaim, advantage of the traders and the so-called speculators, right? Rather than investors. They provide market liquidity.
That's how that works.
Yeah.
I was always wondering, like, who is buying my stock when I'm selling them? So
Yeah.
this is how the market works. Good.
Yeah.
Thanks for the lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a whole load of people that thinks that, okay, the price that you're selling at, okay, I think it's good price, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, on the back of that, I don't know what they're doing, but they obviously have a lot more other data flows, technology that evaluate that is a good price.
Mm-hmm.
So they would say,
Algorithms,
yep,
yeah,
I'll
yeah.
take you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you 109 for that, right? So, so then if you are a singular purpose investor and all you do is buy and sell one stock, you wouldn't have to worry about the rest. You just worry about this stock. Is it liquid? Is it volatile? And then you just do your investing.
Mm.
But me, if I'm a professional trader, I've got to worry about a whole load of other things. How to manage my risk, how to manage my cash flow. Do I use derivatives? Do I use margin? Do I use, a whole lot of other things to maximize and optimize my return? Because I have a different way of making a living.
Different scale of thinking too.
Right.
Yeah.
So on the surface, they do nothing. They create nothing. They look like they're just a buy and sell pirate and try to cream off, small bits of bid and sell from us, and they make themselves rich over time, which is part of the truth. But then imagine without them, then how would the way we manage our investment change in terms of pricing and value of our investments? So if you don't move your investment very often, probably doesn't matter to you that much. But the problem is when you do need to move it and the liquidity is not there,
Mhm.
and you are taking an unnecessary discount of the market price in order to move it, right? So let's say I don't know, there is a emergency,
Mhm.
and you need some cash, and you need to sell all of your Alibaba stocks
Mhm.
today or within this couple of days. And every time you sell, you're taking a discount of 10% because the
Mhm.
market is just not responding. Okay. So you are basically giving up 10% of what you could have had as a cost to the market. But with these traders, you would have saved the 10%. So when that time
Because of
comes, you're going
yeah.
to thank the traders, but not until then.
I mean, okay. So I guess what you're arguing here is that because of the existing of these traders and financial services at large, then we have the liquidity of essentially money. So making not cash, right? We make money more. It flows faster, and it can be used when we need them. Is that what we are arguing here? Because of the financial services essentially providing that freedom or flexibility for us to use our money the way we want when we want it.
Can you pause for 1 second?
Yes, of course.
Stuff.
Now we are back. So
Yeah.
yeah, we were talking about finance and stuff. Um, yeah, it's just hard for me to see, like, even after you explaining the whole idea of liquidity and the mm, and the function of a market and the function of finance people. It's still hard for me to see through the real meaning of them existing. And I mean, I don't know if you want to pick up from where you left off, but I sort of, because this come into my mind when we are pausing and sort of chatting in the background. Then, as much as there are a lot of they are integral in like modern society, right? It's definitely important for all of us now that they are already there. I don't think we can take out finance and hope that the world won't burn into chaos tomorrow. That I think is because they're already how integrated they are to our system. But going back to, I suppose, the original question of, as much as I understand there's this system and chain that are there to ensure people's money are safe and then ensure liquidity of the market, ensure that we have a free market that is running, how much of this does produce value in a sense that it it benefits me as an individual average Joe? Like, how much of that does benefit me? Because I can still imagine the without the free market, or okay, that is not the way to say it. Without the trading, without all these um, complexity on top of things, which is increasingly more complex, right? The whole financial market, and because of that, we're drawing more and more money and resources and people into there to just run the system. Is it already too complex to a point that we shouldn't really need that much people? That we should draw some of them back out to do something else instead? Or do you think there is some like like inherent value that we should sort of continue building on? Because even though now, because I after you explained to me, what I can see is that they are important in maintaining the status quo, in maintaining what we have right now. But does it build something new then? Does it in itself build something for us that I haven't been able to see? You know, that's what I'm curious about.
Um, Depends on what you mean by something new.
Okay.
Um, so let's revolve this explanation around the concept of value.
Okay.
Um, Value is something that, let's say, improves our way of being, our quality of life in
Mm-hmm.
some way, shape, or form, whether it be a service or a product,
Mm-hmm.
or an invention of some sort, right? That improves the quality of our lives, right? I would call it loosely a value,
Fair.
okay? Including entertainment, culture, and all the stuff, because it, gives you a sense of participation. You find that it's enjoyable. So all those are value because it lifts the quality of life.
Yeah.
So now imagine money itself as a as a as a substance, as a thing. How many business in the world that actually create value directly? A bakery shop, a farm, a co-op, a cinema, that do not require money to run. Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Every single business
Needs money.
as long as there's people employed to do something, requires money, because money is not there to pay the hardware, the materials. All of those are offered by Mother Earth for free. When we go mine something in Australia, we don't pay Father Mountain $5 billion. We pay the Australian government for the right to mine. And the Australian government pockets it as part of the federal budget, and they spend it back onto Australian-related facilities, services to the Australians. So because they live there, they own everything that is on the land collectively, and if they sell it to somebody, there is a price. So effectively, you're paying always people, labor, property rights. Has no nature relevance. Everything on earth, or in and of itself, if you go grab it yourself, is free. For example, if you go to the in a forest in Hong Kong, many forests, right? And you chop a bunch of wood, provided it's legal, okay? Or you pick up a bunch of wood that is dead, right? And you collect it around your place, which is a tent, okay? And you're establishing a tent where nobody cares where you are, and you light up the fire, keep yourself warm, and you go into the ocean and you pick up,
Oysters, shellfish,
cockles, and you put on the fire to eat. And then in the morning you go to the stream and have water. You can live your entire life with no money. Agreed?
Agree. Yeah.
So nature provides for free. As long as you do everything to get directly from nature and consume that directly. Money exists when you start to ask somebody to do it for you.
Fair.
And they do it because then for their trouble and the bother of time and effort and labor, they can use that, what they spend a time of doing, to get something else that they would have gotten themselves, that now they don't have the time because they're working for you to do something else for you.
They have sacrificed their own,
Right. Okay. So multiply the complexity by n. Everybody has different division of labor. They do a different slice of service. They create different slice of product. Some food, some engineering, some build houses, some cut your hair, okay? And we all want it to be a fungible unit of something that's freely convertible to any other thing at our wish. That's where invention of money comes from. It's portable, okay? You don't have to carry it around. It's not a bar of gold, okay? And so over time, this became adopted by people and saying, okay, I trust you. And so once that level of trust begins to build, and so originally you trust only silver, and now you trust gold, and now you trust diamond, and now you trust palladium, and now you trust, platinum.
Trust the government.
Okay, now you trust US dollars.
Paper.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So it is built on a huge layer of trust that someone saw this piece of paper and is going to give me a bunch of bananas. Because in and of itself, that piece of paper, if there's no trust, is a waste piece of paper. So you have to understand that as a principal concept around the concept of money.
Yes.
And its relationship to value. Okay. So if you have money circulating in the economy to make various things happen, including the creation of value by the value creators, because they need to pay people and they need to be paid themselves in order to create those value, okay, then it's no different than blood in your body. Well, the heart needs to pump. I need some blood. The muscle needs some blood. Every single organ needs blood. But who controls the blood circulation?
The
Okay?
heart.
Well, it's a complex. Well, heart is a pump, so it's a piece of hardware, right? Heart itself doesn't control everything. It's part of it, okay?
Fair.
But there's a system, there are a number of sensors, and there's a central controlling unit, and your brain has a part of that to deal with that in terms of interpreting the signals. Okay, high pressure here, so okay, don't send much pump over here instead. So there is a software unit, and there are some hardware units that mix up that. And you can call that the financial system of the world in equivalence of the body.
So it makes sure that the exchange of value can continue in a seamless way so that people can, I suppose, like people can safely drop into division of labor
Yes.
and create value and exchange that value via money, I suppose. Yes.
Right. So, in another way you can look at it is making sure that the allocation of blood goes to the right organ at the right time with the right amount to make sure the body works in overall terms.
Okay.
And once you have too much blood, you're going to have a hemorrhage. That's not a good sign. Okay. You
That's
don't have enough
most
blood. You don't have enough blood, then the thing dies, and that's not a good sign, right?
Yeah.
So, so similar to that, if that happens, you need a doctor. And what does the doctor do? Well, look at where the problem is and fix that problem. So you could say, regulators, you could say, central banks, you could say governments, those people are maybe doing part of that maintenance job, on a regular basis. Okay.
Making sure that we don't have too much blood.
Okay.
Or bad
And then
blood.
you have occasional, inflammation in the system, and it requires some fixing. So just like you have natural disaster events in the world that causes disruption in the whole flow, okay, then it takes time to recover. The whole thing goes down for a while, and then, okay, everybody starts to wake up from it. Damages gets fixed, this gets repaired, recovered, and now we go back to normal, kind of. So that's where you have, the global financial crisis, you have the stock market crash for whatever reason, you have oil price, crisis. All those kind of things are just symptoms, equivalent of a body going sick, okay, for whatever reason, for a whole bunch of reasons, okay, and the body will continue to go through the cycle, okay, healthy, get fat, get skinny, get sick, gets insomnia, okay, and then different fixes goes on. Sometimes it requires money, sometimes it requires some other things, okay. So I think if you then look at the body as like a microcosm of the world, and you try to fit components of the various things in the world in there and look how they connect, is not that far wrong in terms of the abstract analogy of that. Okay, guys like me and you are just like individual cells in the body, got trillions of them. Okay, now we have billions of us on Earth. Okay, each one of us kind of the same, but we're slightly different. Okay, and clusters of cells does certain functions very well. They stay in that cluster. Some other clusters do some other things. Some of the cells are muscle cells. Some of the cells are nerve cells. Some of the cells are, in the bones and whatever, right?
Yeah. They're doing different things, yeah.
Right. And do we all need blood? Yeah. Because blood brings nutrients to all of them. So without blood, the cell dies. Whole cell dies. Some of them ages and they die. Others, it's overgrown and they die. We don't need them. Some of them is a cancerous cell. And then at some point in time, you've got to have a major operation, and then the body feels it, takes a longer time to recover. Same thing.
I never thought about it like that way, to think the world as or use the body as an analogy. So
then you think about the world, the body, well, who's in charge? Is there any one organ that is in charge? Really? Or what if the brain goes? Well, everything's dead. But what if the heart goes? Everybody's dead too. What if the lung goes? Well, everybody's dead too. See, you can't really say one is the master of everything. If you have a mind, but you have no body, that doesn't do anything. So every time you ask this question, so who runs this whole thing? Collectively, everybody does their bit to run the whole thing. Now, there is somewhat of an invisible intelligence in terms of the laws of nature written in the design of this being, where the being does not himself or herself understand how it is being designed. We just know it works. And we do what feels right, that our body is sending us signals that, okay, I'm comfortable, so I must be doing something right. I must be drinking enough water. I must be having enough food. I must be resting enough, because right now I'm talking to you and I feel, pretty good. I don't know why I feel this good, but I must be so far doing most of the things right. And you respond to your natural urges of your body. So if there's an urge, I need to go to the toilet. If my mouth is dry, I need a sip of water. So to us, it's natural. To a baby, it's natural. We're just born with our senses that knows the kind of things we need to do when there's a need summoned by the body. So when there's a need summoned by various parts of society, they get hurt. Some people who hurt might be an entrepreneur. Some people hurt it might be the government. Some people hurt it might be the regulators. They say, oh, does it sound like it's my thing? I need to do something? Sounds like it is, so I'm going to do something. Similar, right? When there's an itch, your fingers go there and you scratch. So your fingers, okay, it's my work now. Okay, I'm going to scratch. It's natural. We don't think, okay, should I need to scratch it? What is the benefit
What's the
of
meaning of
scratching?
scratching?
We don't do that, right? So in a society, everybody has kind of like an understood sense of who you are, especially if you're in a job, which is be fairly straightforward and say, okay, well, what are my duties primarily every day? I'll do those. So, so then looping back to value, do they bring to us, as the expansion of this, does it bring anything new to us? Well, then you compare to the growth aspects of your body. As it grows, does it need something new? Probably does. So don't think about growth like looking like me and say, Kevin, you're about to die. So, what are you growing? You say, maybe nothing. But look at someone like you who's saying that, okay, well, I'm starting out. There's a whole lot of things that I haven't experienced yet. And, okay, so what do you need to grow? Well, maybe I need some knowledge. Maybe I need some new skills. Maybe I need some new experience. Maybe I need some new relationships. Maybe I need to, try some new things. So how do you do that? Well, first of all, you got to keep yourself alive. So the whole system has to run continuously. And hopefully you're going to spend time and you devote yourself to do something else. So the whole process of invention, innovation, or creation is just a combination of entrepreneurs who has an idea, speak to some people who are like-minded, get together on a table, let's do it. Okay, well, I need some computer, I need some chairs. Okay, well, who's got the money? The word money would come in naturally. So those demand from money naturally go back to the system of the provision of money, i.e. capital allocators, banks, asset management companies, venture capitalists, private equity guys. You're not going to door and say, hey, I've got an idea who's going to be absolutely big, but I need some money. So there's different layers of investors. Angel investors invest in very, very early stage, right? And then you got VCs coming in after angel goes off, and then private equity comes in after the VC, exit, and then you have IPO, or maybe you keep it private, okay? And then the cycle repeats. So society change, situation change, pandemic comes, there's a brand new pandemic-led lifestyle that creates a demand for something that wasn't there before. Increasing logistic efficiency, increasing logistic complexity of getting everything on demand, right? And then you have to make sure that you don't overstore the thing, but you have to store enough to get it, within a day of order,
Inventory,
blah, 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 right? So you need software, you need drones, you need robots, you need this, and you need that, and you say, okay, well, the oil price sucks. Okay, maybe I need to develop electric, barge, electric, ocean terminals, whatever, right? All of that requires what? Money. Because you need people to work on something new where there is no one there at the moment working on it. You need to ask somebody, say, can you stop what you're doing and do this instead? So in the very basic description of that, because money is basically an allocation of labor. As
Yep.
long as you need new things happen and you need people and therefore labor, money is needed. And money would go to where the money regards as a good idea. And you have some people who are experienced in telling whether that's a good idea or not, or how probable is that good idea going to make a difference. And they decide how much and where the money goes.
Mhm. So then the increase, so it's essentially, if I understand what you say correctly, right, is the increase of complexity of the financial systems, and it's actually the correlation of of the increasing complexity of society itself, because as the society grow different new functions, then we need a way to circulate money so that that new function can be supported. Did I get it
Correct.
correctly? Okay.
Yes. So let's say the human evolved
Mhm.
and we go, now we're able to, you know, dive and hold our breath for far longer than before. Okay.
Mm.
And we evolve, um, you know, like membranes between our fingers,
Fins,
right?
gills,
Fins between our
yeah.
fingers, right?
Uh-huh.
That's a new organ.
Mhm.
That requires new blood to go to the organ,
Right.
new routes to get to the organ and the cells of that organ.
New
So,
function to make sure that those actually function properly. Yes.
right, because it serves a function for the overall body, and the body
Mhm.
needs to evolve, adapt, right? So as we go into the digital economy, now we've got more money into the digital things that is required for that new economy, like crypto, like Bitcoin,
Mm.
like Ethereum or an NFT or whatever, the whole junkyard of stuff. Some of them will take hold. Some of them will be just by natural selection, come off
Eliminated.
because
Yeah.
they're not competitive enough or they're not necessary anymore in the new way. And in the process of deciding which one is necessary, they compete. They compete for which one has the most functional use to generate the maximum value. And those that does stays, and they get capital allocation because there's a
Wow.
need by you and me for that product to come online because we want that product. There's a value for us. So then people who are building the product understands that, oh, there's someone who wants it. Then that means if I build it, they will pay for that. And that would be my livelihood.
Mhm.
Okay, cool. I'll do that because I'm a jobless finance student because I'm so oversupplied. I've got nothing else to do. Okay, I might as well do this. You see?
Mm.
So all of that looks like a bad news, right?
Yeah.
Eventually push people to do things that they would never have thought about doing if they had a choice. So there is a huge group of finance students that are jobless or not in an optimal job based on their relative skill set and education. Why should they be, after 5 years of education, delivering on Deliveroo
Mm.
or Shunfeng or whatever? They're competing on jobs that they should not have been competing. Those jobs should be reserved for people with far less education level so that those guys have something to do and build a life of their own, at least for now, until they acquire new skills. But if you guys are already up here in terms of education, you should be doing something of much higher value to begin with.
Mm.
And I'm saying, humbly, myself personally, I'm trying to spread the message out to everybody who will listen and say, if you do like the job that you've been given, there are other possibilities. And I'm not saying every single one of them is going to be successful like Steve Jobs, but it is not an all or nothing thing. You don't have to be like a Steve Jobs to be successful. You can be moderately successful with a software company or a platform app. That would be more than enough to compensate for not getting into the financial industry and maybe doing far more meaningful things. And maybe the ultimate compensation will be at least as good as, if not better, as a owner of a business. Okay? And all I'm saying is that we are conditioned by the school not to be owners. They teach us to be risk averse. They don't actually bring entrepreneur as a normal or a parallel path to employment. They think that entrepreneurs are a separate class of people that possess some amazing superpowers, and most of you guys are not going to be on that path. So you get a job, and
Be the sheeps, essentially.
I humbly disagree, even if I do respect that opinion. I disagree.
You
I think
understand why they
everyone,
do it, but not really agreeing with it, right?
I understand that they have their opinion,
Mm.
and I respect every opinion as an opinion just as much.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean I agree with it. I'm not trying to impose my opinion on someone else,
Mm-hmm.
but I just want to get it out there. There's another perspective, that there's another angle to look at this too, if that person finds it useful as a reference point.
So what would that perspective be then? If I give you the floor to say preach per se.
Okay, so I would say start with zero,
Mm-hmm.
and there are no tracks that you need to be on to be perceived as successful, respectable, or whatever. Okay, let's say there are no one else's opinion. No one cares about what you do. There are no social price to pay for choosing a less trodden path.
Mm-hmm.
Your parents don't, look down upon you and question why you don't do what everybody else does. Your friends don't look at your name card and say, why doesn't it say Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley? And they start to distance you because you don't belong to the clan.
Mm.
Let's say you don't pay any social cost or social price for doing what you want to do.
So you
Okay?
ignore that. Mm.
Well, let's just say in a beautiful world that everybody is 100% understanding and respectful. Okay,
Super
let's
inclusive.
Just,
Okay.
yeah, just
Imagine that.
dream of that world for a second, right? Because ultimately, even if it is not, those people who are saying these things ultimately are not taking responsibility of your decisions.
Mm.
So if they advise you or suggest to you, you should just get a job, who bears the consequence of actually getting that job, working that job? You.
Mm.
They're not the one getting stuck in the office, getting bored, getting people that they don't really want to hang out with, learning attitudes in which they do not align with, and turn themselves into a completely different person in which they themselves don't particularly like.
Mm.
You're the one taking responsibility, regardless of whether this is a perfect world where everybody's inclusive or is an imperfect world where people actually say something. That doesn't change.
You pay responsibility for your own actions and choices.
Yes.
Mm.
But your attitude and your response would. If you make that choice yourself, not because of what somebody else has said, you're more likely to assume that responsibility yourself and live with it. And because it's your responsibility, you feel that you're empowered to change anytime you want because it's your call. However, if you think that you're doing it because you need to comply with other people's suggestion or to be aligned with their social value and stature, then when you get stuck in that position, you're more likely to complain instead of owning up in your decision, and you're less likely to change because you think that there's a price to change.
Mm.
That they don't like you anymore. They're going to give you, loads of complaint and, bickering, all those kind of things, right? Mm. And if you're a social person, which is nothing wrong with that, and you very much would like a supportive, warm environment where people would actually so-called approve what you do, right? And like who you are and be proud of what you do, then you got to somehow align with their sense of value, of what they think is good, of what they regard as successful. Okay? So that being the pretext, and I'm saying, why do we study at all? We study because we need to gain knowledge. For what? Well, to understand the world, to make sense of things. Why? Well, we need to survive. The very essence of survival requires you to understand how things work so you can navigate this world, and be a complete person, right? Know where to get the food, know where to get water, know how to get around the city. So you put that in the current sense of the reality, living in the city, then it just means how do you become a functional human being in this particular environment with everything that goes with it?
Mm.
Okay. And then you go, okay, well, I need to learn the things that allows me to do just that. Okay. And now, when you become an adult, you're going to need to be financially independent. You don't want to be a burden to your
Society.
parents, right?
Parents, yeah.
So we call it making a living. Okay. I don't like the term, but that's how we call it. Fine.
Mm-hmm.
Making a living means you're going to make enough money so that you can change the money for the utilities that you need, to survive. Rent, food, transportation, blah, blah, blah. And if you look at how can you make money, there are a number of ways. You can work for somebody. You can work for yourself and be a client and have other people to be your client. Or you can make something yourself. Okay, so there are different things, right? So working for somebody could be a product or service. Making something yourself could be a product or service. So right now, you're a tutor, you're providing a service as a freelancer. Okay, you're not working for anybody, you're working for yourself because you don't get paid by somebody. You get paid directly by your clients.
I am essentially a business owner of
Right.
myself. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So all I'm saying is that these two are equally good, equally potentially suitable for every single person. That's what my starting point is.
Okay.
For anyone who's finished the level of education that they require. And I don't need everybody to be a university student in order for that to qualify them to say that. If they feel like, okay, well, you know what, Kevin, I don't want to do this and I don't see why I need to do university. I'm finished high school now. I have a reasonable mastery of communication. I have a reasonable mastery of expression, learning abilities, focus, analytical skills, attention to detail, working with people. I think I need to just go into this field of work and start doing it and then learning it and get better at it and then see where I go. So for that, I think even if someone who does not have the aspiration to go to any additional higher learning, it's perfectly okay as long as they know what they're doing. So if they understand the industry, they spend time researching, they know some people there, they know how they work, and if the industry doesn't really require a degree, then not having a degree probably is an okay decision to make. So it's all depending on your
where
personal
you want to go.
interest. Right.
Yeah.
I would suggest that it is your responsibility to do the research, and there are no excuse for doing poor research because you now have something that I didn't have when I was at your age, which is your phone, or more importantly, a smartphone. I mean, the smartest thing about any person on earth right now is their phone. Really.
Fair.
Can you outsmart your phone? Can anyone outsmart their phone? Very unlikely. Input, output. The phone is multiple times the power of the computer that lands the Apollo on the moon.
Right.
That was back in, 40 years ago.
The processing power of our phone is...
60 years ago, in fact, not 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So if you are, let's say, 17 years old, 16, 17, and you just finished high school, and you want to go into, I don't know, performing arts, okay? And but let's say you just want to perform on the street, okay? Okay, it's kind of a low probability hit that you're going to make tons of money, but if I ask you to evaluate things for what they are, and if you truly are passionate about something and you just can't stop doing that thing all day long, that's probably something in it. So I would say, well, what's the harm in trying? But when I say try, I would say treat something as seriously as you possibly can while seriously enjoying it. I don't think it's mutually exclusive. I think if you really like something and you strive to be the best at that something, you can have that relative state of balance between two of these things that looks to be exclusive.
You don't have to feel distressed at your job. You can try to enjoy it, or you can find something that
You naturally will enjoy it,
mm-hmm.
right? Let's say I want to busk, right, on music, right? Now, every day, if I spend 4 hours, 5 hours singing the same 5 or 6 songs to make it perfect, does it bother me? No. Do I enjoy the process? Yes. Will I improve my skills over a year? Yes. Will it sound different between now and the end of the year? Definitely. Would someone be more likely to pay me now or a year later? Definitely a year later. Okay. So how much do you demand yourself on perfecting your craft? Dictates your probability of success. Okay. Now, there are things you can control, there are things you can't control. All I'm talking about are the things you can control. Okay. But I would say very minimally, at least that's 50% of your relative probability of success that you can control. Okay. If I can be the best I can be, I show up, I bring energy to this thing that I do. The quality of what I do is better than the average person. And not many people do what I do. Okay. I think it's very likely I'm going to have at least some market, some people interested in it, and you start with that. Like any idea.
Yeah.
Right? You start pushing off to anyone who will listen. Send it to your friends. Tell everybody you're going to be there. Even if it's one person that you stand, even if it's no person that you stand, you sing. Okay? And you work on it, you work on it, you work on it. I didn't say it was easy, but say compare it to the alternative. Show up at work. This thing that doesn't mean anything to you. You're dying to sing every day, but all you do is pressing buttons in front of computers. You get this check, okay? So the two lifestyle, what is it? A different price to pay. It depends on which one are you more willing to pay. There are no right answers. They're both right because you decided to take that responsibility yourself. You don't blame anybody. So if you do a boring job, you're not going to blame me. You're saying, Kevin, I thought about it. You know what? That thing, maybe after I hit 60, just like you, when I retire, then I'm going, okay, fine, great. So all I want is for you to be satisfied and happy and owning your decision. Because once you own it, you won't complain about it. And when you don't complain about it, you don't stress out. You may be bored, but you won't be stressed. You won't be discontent. Because you chose it, knowing that there is another way of doing it, and you still chose it under no one else's influence. That is what I want to get people to do. I'm not saying everybody should, go and be an entrepreneur. No. I'm saying that when you make that decision, make sure it is your decision. Make sure you do the research. Make sure you try all the things that you want to try. Okay? So some practical advice, or not advice, practical suggestion. Kevin, I want to try this, try that, but I can't possibly get all internship in that. Fine. Go to the internet. Search for keywords. Look for people who's done it before. See if they have anyone like a personal sharing of an experience on YouTube. There's loads of them. Finance, for example. How many people would say, a title say, why I quit my 150K JP Morgan job after 3 years.
Glassdoor, yeah.
Right. There's like loads of them. Well, if you want a piece of experience and you don't want to do it, have something secondhand to begin with. Just get an idea. When you hear that, does this sound exciting to you? If it does, okay, well, maybe you should know a little bit more. Okay, if you're interested in that industry, after hearing all of those things and it excites you, it must excite you in a certain way. Well, in what way does it excite you? Is it the market? Is it the environment? Oh, okay, if it's the market, search the market keyword. Look at how people talk about a market. Does that guy sound the way he sounds? Does it excite you the way he talks about a market? Okay, well, if it does, watch more. Start reading stuff. Go back in history. Look at some books. Okay, grow your interest and grow your depth of understanding. You
Mm.
can do so much by yourself these days. It is almost laughable that you need to ask anybody questions. Because by the time you ask somebody a question, if you've done and exhausted all of the research you could have done, you would be asking such a high quality question that most of the time you would think, you know what, let me think about it. I may not need to ask it. Let me search it a little bit more. Let me figure this out. Let me look at the history. Let me look at the charts. Maybe I can just figure this out by myself. Your
Mm.
your confidence would grow with your own level of knowledge as you build. Right now, people are just too, forgive me for saying this,
Go for it.
too lazy to do this stuff. They want to be spoon fed. Students would ask me, okay, well, which website do you recommend? I said,
Mm.
I don't know, because I'm not really interested in that field, but I'm pretty sure there will be some interest, some information on that field.
Mhm.
Just look at a keyword, right? People by default were just saying that, okay, who should I listen to? What, guys, do it yourself. I'm here to suggest you a piece of action that you could take. But if you
Mm.
have the attitude that you need to be spoon fed, then probably you don't want it bad enough.
Well, can I be the devil advocate just so
Please,
that you
uh,
can
yeah,
sort of expand your preach a bit more, right? So I agree that like this in this modern age where Google and search engines and also obviously the accessibility of information allows you to go into such depth of research that it's amazing how much I can know about something just by searching or actually having the right search. So obviously the first argument would be, well, how do you get the skills to have the right search to begin with? Highly like that's where I would advocate for school actually teaching people how to search stuff, scientifically, how to actually judge this and that. But for on your point on like asking question though, because there's some other problem that comes with all this information that we are allowed to access, which is the validity of it, right? How do I know what is valid and what is not valid? And the for a guy that be on the internet and be on both end of creating and also receiving the information, that I would argue that it is very difficult to judge what information is valid compared to not, right? Then wouldn't in that case, um, people still actually need to question them, but then they wouldn't be able to formulate what is right and wrong. Then they will need to come to you or people that are going back to my students, right? A lot of time I would obviously I agree with what you say. To be frank, I would tell them, well, look, like you don't know what you want to study in college. Go online. There's a lot of like information out there that tells you what subject does what and lead to what future or what you're going to study. At the very least, you will know what is happening. But in on the other hand, those information usually are not holistic enough to provide a vision for them, and also sometimes it's false, or at least it doesn't represent the truth that is that my student would intake, right? And there's also the problem of those information are usually provided by the single source, which is the university themselves, right? So then in this day and age of such an information, then how am I to take responsibility for my decision when I can't reliably judge what is right okay, sorry, what is true or what is valid or what is not? And wouldn't that leads to me needing to be in a sort of a spoon fed, not really spoon fed if they are actually out asking question, but we would really need to rely on insight from people, from government, from everyone else, so that we can make a decision. That we might not have as much power that you say to make
right,
that decision as we do. I'm
right,
wondering what you think about that. Yeah,
sure. Um, Maybe I answer it in two parts.
definitely.
Um,
Go for it.
the first part about how do I get the right information? How do I know they're valid? Um, so there is a process. So you begin by what you can. You do the keywords and you
Sure, sure.
whatever search come up. You read. Okay. So I would suggest you do both ways: the
Mm-hmm.
text and the video. or even podcasts, right? In some degree. So these are three mainstreams of information distribution these days, right? And they each carry their own unique characteristics in terms of effectiveness and the type of information contained. So I would start with the text, okay? When someone wrote a piece of article in some sort of a news format, explain certain things. So you go in from the shallow end, wondering, okay, what do you mean by this? What is an asset management industry? What is an asset management company? What do they do? You type the keywords, and stuff will come up. So you have some basic grounding of terminology, and then you go up in terms of complexity and richness of information from there. Now, when you look at the first piece of text, what is the source? Where does the source come from? BlackRock? Well, who's BlackRock? Oh, the biggest manager in the world. Okay, well then obviously the credibility goes up. You don't have to know. You just have to ask fundamental questions that allows you to develop that sense. And all of that is available on the search, because the search engine will never get sick of you asking why. They will keep on feeding you answers. And if you're too lazy to type, then talk to Siri. Okay? Let her do the search for you, right? As long as you're interested enough to ask questions, I don't think you will. And you keep. And this is a good point. You have to keep learning about how to improve the quality of the way you ask your questions.
Yeah.
The more specific, the better you frame it, the better the quality of the answers. Because there are all types of answers out there. It depends on how you ask and what you ask. That is your responsibility. So if there's one thing that I wish the schools would really spend time on teaching is how to ask questions.
Definitely.
So that's one point. Now, once you start to read a couple of articles and you develop a good sense of terminology, concepts behind it, I would go to my personal preferences would go to video, and I start to listen to interviews of very senior people of that industry or of that topic. Okay, well, how do I know the senior? Again,
LinkedIn.
you ask the right questions. Yeah. Well, who's this guy? What does he do? Check out his profile, right? Well, who's Mark Zuckerberg? Oh, he owns this. Okay, I can listen to him for a little bit. Okay, just a little bit. So, and when you have senior CEOs, head of divisions of people appearing on Bloomberg, CNBC, there is certain degree of truthfulness about their observation because of what they do. Because otherwise the whole market would laugh at them and say, you're just telling me a whole bunch of balonies. Right? So the very fact of who they are and the fact that they're publicly viewable would control the degree of truthfulness to a higher percentage of probability for any given person looking at that. Okay?
That is, the possibility of it being false is lower.
Yes.
Yes.
Lower. Is it possible they carry an agenda with that view? Yes.
Definitely.
Right? But that's for a next more advanced stage. But in terms of basic information gathering, familiarization of concepts and terminology, I think that would work pretty well. And so the triangulation of these things, ultimately, if you spend enough time on it, will give you some basic comfort. And from there, you can develop quality questions. And I think at the time, if you're still interested, you should then reach out to some real people who either is currently doing that job or have very good experience of doing that job before, and you can have a conversation, whether it's in the school or not, right? Or you can reach out to people on LinkedIn, or you can actually just go out to global platform on Reddit, and then say, hey, anyone who is a hedge fund manager or worked in a hedge fund before, can I have a chat with you? I want to go into a hedge fund and I'm looking for some advice. And because you have that basic grounding of information, you now can tell whether that guy is making sense or not. Overall, okay? I know you're still in an office. 3 months doesn't make you an expert. I understand. But you are far better position to ask a good pointy question, specific question, okay, with the ability to more likely to understand the answer than 3 months ago.
At least you understand what they're saying because you have learned the
Yes.
basics of it.
And if you don't understand what they're saying, you can ask the next question to
Why don't?
get to the level that you can understand.
Mm.
So that would be the approach.
Mm.
But is it easy? No, it is mentally draining. I've tried it. It's mentally draining. There's a lot of things to read. Then you gotta. It's kind of like learning English for the first time.
Oh yeah.
And I'm reading Old Man and the Sea, and I've got my dictionary. And after about 1 month, the whole Old Man and the Sea is full with Chinese words on top of the English, so I can actually reread it again, so I can get the whole meaning.
Mm.
Because all I did was actually one word at a time, find the meaning, write down a Chinese word, and one word at a time. But okay, that was dumb. That was just clumsy. But hey, that was all I had to learn at that time. And you do what it takes to learn if you really want to learn about something, don't you? So this goes back to one word, which is motivation. Everything that I say means nothing to anyone who has no motivation.
Mm.
It's not my job to motivate you. I help people who want to be helped and is looking for direction. But if you don't even interested in the topic, then I respect that. And I'm not imposing anything. And, hopefully you find that of some entertaining value after listening to this, and that's okay too,
I mean, in the risk of being an echo chamber, I want to share some of my view too, because like what you just say, right? You sort of just lay out the essential skills a student or anyone that is looking forward to develop their own future. You lay out the essential skills that are necessary, which is a questioning skills, how to ask the right questions, communication skills, how to know how to ask, how to communicate with people so that you can actually gain an expert in insight, or even to to talk to people so that you can actually find the right question to ask, right? And then there is also I suppose, the emotional intelligence that allows you to sniff through um, people's emotions, to understand where they're coming from, why do they speak the way they speak, and to understand in what context are they speaking from, under what emotion, what influenced them to do certain things, so that you can better understand the situations, right? And the most important thing that you mentioned will be the motivation, which is to feel like I want to know about all this. And as a tutor, which is going to sound very venti right now, I feel like our education system, although try to address this problem, are failing quite miserably in teaching this four essential skills of life. So for questioning skills, when in theory, science and math should be there to develop your ability to logically understand a situation and ask the right question. Why do this happen? When there is a logical inconsistency in the things that you have learned or in the mathematical equation, that should in theory develop a way for you to question the inconsistency that there form the basis of a questions, right? At least from my understanding, how questions are formed. But then, because of how we teach math and science, a lot of time is memorization and is for the exam. Even in when I'm tutoring, when I try to teach that skills, my students are not motivated to do that. They just want the answer. They want to get through the exam. So that's one failure, right? And then communication skills, language are supposed to represent what you're supposed to speak, what represent, it grants you ability to ask the right question, to speak your mind, to communicate your thoughts. But instead, it's always about speaking the fancy language, having the best idiom, having the best structure that sounds impactful. but not necessarily truthful and representative of what you think. So that's the second problem, right? And then there goes to the EQ. We never learn EQ in class, really. No one teaches how to deal with our classmate. No one teaches how to deal with, a relationship at school. I mean, if we, because of my background, of Alex's background, really, then you hear all those stories about bullying, all those stories about um, people people not able to integrate into the class. We can see how little guidance that we are given as a student to actually integrate ourselves into that. And finally, motivation, how we are not really teaching student to, no, okay, we are actually always discouraging student to be inquisitive, in the sense that, why are you wasting time on this? Go do your exam. Why are you playing games? Why are you spending time on the internet? Go study. And then naturally, when they are so in my experience as a tutor, when I'm tutoring people that are younger, say in primary school, they're actually still quite inquisitive, in the sense that when I teach science, I always love those questions. Oh, why did this happen? Oh, if I mix, like, if I drop a ball, why does the feather actually drop slower? And then they ask all the whys, and then they're still inquisitive. But and I was saying, think they are still motivated to learn. But when I teach students that are in older ages, like say in form 5, form 6, they are so obedient to a point that I'm kind of scared. It's like, why are you listening to me without questioning me? What if I'm wrong? Like, okay, obviously as a tutor, it's my job to make sure that I'm right, but I can be wrong too. I'm human. And that, I don't know how you see the whole thing, but that saddened me, in a sense that we are not really priming them for discovering life, really. We are not helping them at all to navigate and in this future where they have to find their own path, which all of us have to do that. And this is actually where leads a question that I'm wondering, under this context or the negativity. I hope it doesn't emotionally impact you too much on that. But under this context, right, I'm wondering then, how do a student, or actually two questions, how do a student, when they are not even motivated, because although I can't say they are that responsible, really, they're kids. Some of them are too young to be responsible for themselves. Under this context, how do a student regain that motivation to do what you just say, to research, to find interest, to fine tune their skills so that they can find more? So that's one. And two, how do parents or a person in a position to guide, tutor, parents, teacher, friends, help them in this process? Because you can. I think you can answer the question. And then I was just about to reiterate, so it's fine. You can go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll answer the second question first, because it's far quicker.
Okay.
You don't guide them. You arouse their interest, and then you let them do it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll explain by answering the first question.
Okay.
So it's actually an example. It's my son. So he gave me a comment just a couple of days ago when I was, asking him, hey, what are you doing? He was having a Zoom class. And the only thing he told me was, this is so boring. I don't even know why I'm doing this. I hate this. Now, I think if there's $1 that you would have given every time you hear these words as a tutor, you would be a millionaire by now, right?
Oh, yeah.
Why is it so consistent for every single kid about school? I mean, I think the answer is staring right off our face for a long time now. Exactly those words. No one explained to them why. And then the way after they don't explain to them why, the brain turns off because the brain seeks meaning to expend energy. I don't want to spend energy on something that doesn't mean anything to me. I'm not getting pleasure. I'm not getting excitement. I don't even know the reason. I think this is dumb. Save the energy on something that has meaning because I don't have unlimited energy. So then, what does my son have energy for? Well, ever since young, I don't speak English to him, okay? So even though English is what I'm comfortable speaking, but we speak Cantonese at home. His Cantonese sucks. He hates Mandarin. Why? Well, it goes back to when he started playing games when young. Those games are in English. Did he know all the vocabulary then? No. But the game was interesting. Now, you're a gamer. You should know modern games don't come with a user manual 50 pages thick like I used to playing Duke Nukem when I was, 19 years old. You don't read manuals anymore. Everything's like online, you click on this button, they show you a dialogue box or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He grew up in that environment where he's playing a game. Why is he playing a game? It's interesting. Why is it interesting? And then if you really want to know the answer, they will explain to you in a language that will surprise you.
Mm.
In a structure that will shock you. In a logic that will defy your belief. They actually have all of those skills. You're just asking about the wrong subjects.
Can you give me some example of that?
Right.
Yeah.
So the games that he has been playing, he was playing various games, Minecraft, Roblox, 3D Pixel Gun,
Mm-hmm.
Clash Royale, all of those games, right?
What a kid game, yeah.
So you would think that, okay, looking at him just pressing a button is all about reflex. That's all it is. It's only a visual excitement. It is not.
Mm.
Behind the games are a series of, puzzles, rules that you have to know and remember so that you can use them at the right time and avoid certain traps at the right time, look into certain thing at the right time, remember what this guy used to do, how they used to kill you, and you have to duck, and you have to do this, and there's the move. Actually, it's very complicated. Yeah. And none of them is written down. No notes are taken. Everything is learned by experience. Well, why do they want to learn that? Because when they do something right, the game gave them the reward of satisfaction, getting a score, leveling up, giving a trophy, getting a piece of music, some sense of recognition that you're great. You've done it right. Well done, boy. They do not get that in real life at all. Mm-hmm. Now imagine you're a kid. You have two environments. One environment is nurturing. Always think that, give me 5. You give 3 stars. Versus reality. Have you done your homework yet? Why aren't you doing this? Stop playing games. Which environment would you rather be in? There's no competition, really,
There's
right?
no competition, yeah.
Okay. So, why are the games so addictive? Because they understand us far better than our tutors, our teachers, the governments, the schools. They really know how to make us tick. You want a good education system? Hire a gaming company. Pay them loads of money. Convert your materials into games. And they'll be immediately addicted. They'll all be scientists and Einsteins. This would be my number one free of charge advice for anyone who has the money or know the people. Imagine loading this thing to Minecraft, but don't get Minecraft to tell people it's for education. Just have them packaged as a game. But within the game, you get to learn how to ask the right questions. Otherwise, you don't get the next level up. The kids will be forced to develop the habit that they thought was a game that has a storyline to it that is attractive. That's what gamers are great for. So if I was the government, I would do a backdoor deal with one of these big game guys, right? Like Epic Games or whatever, and saying, okay, I'm going to give you 100 million. Here is the syllabus curriculum that I want the kids to learn, all the way from here to here. I want you to develop levels of these games that befits the way that the school wants them to learn, and I want you to package because you are the expert. You got our kids addicted. I know you're good at this. So all I'm asking for is to get them addicted to this too. And I can get them to play your game all day long. We can save all the school. They can still do the exam and they'll get high scores because they don't even know they've learned it. The kids don't like to be told what to do. They like to do the things they're not supposed to do. Let's appeal to that. You have to understand the person in order to, to achieve certain things. If you ignore the person's needs and you just want to get what you want, but you're not them, you cannot empathize someone who is, 1/5 of your age. You used to be there, but you forgot what it's like anymore. As an adult, you look down upon them. You think they don't know stuff that you do. I really respectfully disagree. I think they know different things than you do in a different way. You don't live in their world. You don't grow up with a phone in your hand. You don't know what it's like to grow up with a phone in your hand. Don't drag them back to your history and teach them this history is good. Now live this way. It's the wrong way around. You should let them teach you how to get to the future, right? You should show an interest in what they're doing and say, oh, that's interesting. Show me how it works. I think there would be a far more different conversation if I ask my kid how this game works. He'll be the first one. Yeah, come on, let me show you. And they'll have infinite patience. I tried, right? Because I'm dumb and my eyes are not so good. I said, what's this thing again? I said, show me again. And he never loses patience on me. Never. But he will lose patience very quickly on anything else that is, work related, school related. It's a non-starter really.
Yeah.
Okay. So what does that mean? They have the skills. I witnessed them. Just not on the subjects that I would like them to have the skill for. Okay? So let's not reinvent the whole wheel. Someone else has reinvented a really great wheel called the games. The platform is there. We just got to change the content. And you don't change the habit of the kid. You just magnify the habit. Okay? It's the most cunning way. Don't tell anybody. Okay?
That's actually sorry, continue first.
No, I'm finished. I'm just saying.
Okay.
If you ask me, why is it that, it's not that big a deal? Because we approach the problem in how we understood the problem, not how they understand their reality. Okay? We refuse to go inside their brain and see, well, what would work for me if I were him? Think about what a kid is, right? Think about ADHD. Is ADHD really a thing? Because back in my days, no one has invented this term, and I see people jumping around all the time. They're not paying attention. What about those guys? You mean ADHD has been around for years? Well, why are we branding it now? We used to just call those kids naughty. It wasn't a condition. You don't take medicine for it. All of a sudden now, every single mother, oh, my son's got ADHD. Well, just because he's not interested in the things that you want and really interested in things that they want doesn't mean they're sick. Please, don't make your kids sick when they're not. Don't brand them. Don't label them. Because they're going to say, oh, I have ADHD. I mean, this is the quickest way to kill a kid. By telling them that there's something that they're not. Or condition, right? So all I'm saying is that, look, I've been through different iterations of that because I've been talking to Francis for about a year now, and we both talk. We spend so much time in education. Let's try this, let's try that. And I'm thinking, you know what? Why do we have to try that? It's already there. It's staring right in front of our eyes. We have to stop the kids from playing games. Imagine we have to stop them learning the things we want them to learn. Isn't that what we want? Well, use the same platform. obviously they've done something amazing and they continue to improve. They hire the best psychologists, PhDs, who are experts in human behavior, how to make them, you know, um, addicted to it. Might as well, right?
Mm.
And you can use groups. You can even improve the social skills by improving the way the language is exchanged. You're not allowed to type abbreviations. You have to type a full sentence, right? So that when they speak, they know how to speak. And you have to type in the right grammar. If the grammar is wrong, the message doesn't go out. You learn English automatically, right? There's so many
Mm.
things you can do, so many tricks. I mean, I'm not a programmer, but I'm just like, I've got seeds of ideas. And I think, well, if it were me, this is how I might design it, okay? As long as the game itself, okay, is interesting, the graphics is attractive, and it brings things like they're used to, like weapons or whatever. It doesn't have to be bloody, right? Those
Mm.
guys are not violent. They're not gory. They just want to feel the power, okay?
The
Being able
power
to
of
jump,
fantasy, yeah.
the jump, the flying over something, shoot something. You can be shooting peanuts for all I know,
Mm-hmm.
as long as the other guys drop dead, they'll be laughing. They're laughing. They're not like having anger to try to, they're not that kind of thing, you know. And my son is very content with playing blocky figures. Doesn't even have to be realistic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that means is what? They are more up for intellectual challenge than we think. They're so much ahead of us. The books are not intellectually challenging enough the way it is being presented. So instead of teaching them knowledge, get them to solve problems. Give them problem to solve. Give them tools to solve them. Each time, give them a slightly harder problem. Give them one or two new tools. Let them learn the nature of the tools. Give them an example of how to solve it. Get them to practice solving them. And then they go solve it 10 times, and they level up. Okay? Now that you have that skill, do that.
Mm.
I bet you can finish the entire, 12 years of education in 4 because they're so addicted.
If they're doing it every day, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Imagine if you spend that amount of time on games, on school, you'll be graduating in like 5 years. Can you imagine, by the time you're 15, you're done with the university? What would happen to the productivity of your life after that? Right? Start a
Mm.
business at 18. I mean, how
It's
many more
actually,
Einsteins will we get?
well, there's so much I think I want to respond to. So
Yeah,
it's
please
like,
do.
there's so many part of it. But so the first one obviously will be like, I think what you're saying, yes, to understand the kid, to to tailor your teaching or education to their individual needs and wants, and most importantly, interests. I think that's where I remember you and Francis when I talk about it, like to that's sometimes I think that's why tutor is picking up speed, because we are in a position to actually do that, to give them, at least to prompt them to be interested in something by providing them, okay, this can be seen in this way, helping them ask the right questions, helping them, well, if you're interested in this, why not do more, motivate them in that way. So I will just skip that point because I think we talked about it before for us, right? But then I'm imagining like the game idea. That one was actually quite, I think, inspiring, because I think there have been because there have been multiple attempts of gamifying educations, and I don't think they work. I'm okay. I mean, I'm not talking about a game idea that doesn't work. I'm saying gamifying education doesn't work. Essentially, building a system. So what I see a lot of time is they have an exam, essentially, some questions, exercise. They put a game system on top of an exam that gives you a point and scores. And I personally don't see how that is fun, because why am I being rewarded? I'm not rewarded by that. But if the principle is there is something that we're trying to teach in a hidden way, but we're actually not trying to trick people into doing exam question, but instead we're designing an experience that are based on something that we want them to learn. That does sound like very powerful tools. So that's where I want to like sort of throw ideas with you here, if you don't mind leaking to the public, that is.
No, that
So,
was only joking. I wish. So part of what I do
mhm,
is sowing seeds.
mhm.
If anyone in the world saw this and picked it up and become a billionaire, don't even have to pay me. Don't even have to tell me. I'm just glad that you did.
True.
Um, you know, because I've got so many random ideas, and I'm just going to keep throwing out, and if people find it useful and got rich, you know what? I consider that a meaningful thing to do. So when I die, when I get up there and I get, what have you done, Kevin? Oh, I've done it. Okay, you can go in. that's, that's pretty good for me, right? I don't
Okay.
need more money. I don't want the trouble and the problem of running a massive company and to go to, no, that's not me.
Mm.
I just want to throw ideas that people find out, oh, hey, I love the underdogs, right? And if they have nowhere to go and they picked up this idea, they ran with it and did something amazing, God, good for you, man.
True.
Even you, if you picked it up, I'll be out there all the way cheering, but just don't ask me to do any work, okay?
No, because I
I'll
like.
give you ideas though.
Oh, you gave me an idea already, really, because like there's like do you know like the global game jam?
No, what is it?
So essentially, it's a hackathon for. Is it a hackathon? It's a hackathon for game makers, but essentially, you don't really have to be a game maker per se, so long as you have ability to make a prototype of a game and compete within it, then that is already good enough. So programming skill probably still needed, but it's minimal, right? And I was thinking about joining that next year, which is going to be, I think, actually, it's going to be very close recent. Anyway, um, then I was thinking about your idea. So it's just random idea that I want to throw out there. That so let's say we design a game based on physics, because I teach physics, and let's say the principle of the game is to learn about force. Okay, then what do you think this will be interesting? Say there is a game that is the main mechanics is uh shooting cannonballs, and you have to essentially understand how different factors is going to affect the flight of the cannonballs, like being a sniper, for example, right? You have to understand it's so realistic that you would need to, or so the first stage would be, okay, the person is just right here, and then you have to snipe down, and then you understand, okay, as long as you shoot, you will hit the head, right? And the second stage will be like a miles later, further. Now wind is factored in. You will see, okay, well, how, because there is wind, then the next force actually affect the flight trajectory of it. Then you force them into different situation that they need to make a shot that is increasingly more difficult. And if you don't factor in the physics of that bullet, you won't be able to do it. And weaving in that is hints that tells you, well, this is going to be the factor that affects the bullet. You might want to consider that to help them, to prompt them to solve the problem with that particular logic. Oh, you want to shoot something off because you want to teach Newton's third law, then you want to say be able to uh account for recoil, for example, like because recoil is essentially an example of Newton's third law, right? The bullet go out, the gun go back. Um, would that be an interesting game for you?
Hugely.
Hugely.
I was,
Okay.
as you were talking, I was visualizing.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I imagine like dialogue box
Okay.
of some wizard,
Mm-hmm.
giving them the hint.
Yeah, like a
And
annoying paper clip from like the window
no,
word
no, 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 no.
era.
Whatever it is,
Okay.
right? But a lot less annoying than that,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
A little bit more exciting,
A little bit more exciting. Yes.
like a
Yes. Yes.
stand or something.
Yeah.
It's like a little dragon or whatever. Whatever they can pick. They can pick they can choose from a list of wizard that they
Mm-hmm.
want. And they
Mm-hmm.
can choose the right shape, right? The color, skin, and all of that stuff. We have
Customization.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, use the existing games that features those things that hook them.
Mm-hmm.
Use that set. We don't have to recreate that. The
Of course.
problem you just highlighted about the current gamification of education is because they're designed by teachers. That's the problem. Don't bring the teacher into the design. Bring the teachers to specify the curriculum. Let
What
the
to teach.
designer design the design.
Mm.
Okay? You don't want the game to look like a textbook by a teacher with different colors and call it a game. It doesn't work. The students go, oh no, that's a con. I know that for sure. You know, there's going to be an exam question with A, B, C, D, E, that's bullshit.
They're not that dumb.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, for example, I was just imagining, right? If my kid was playing that and he's trying to shoot,
Mhm.
and let's say he's just trying to press, the wizard goes, do you know what would affect your accuracy? And he clicks on it and says, well, there are these three things. And he clicks on that, and let's say the parabolic, right?
It's
Distance,
sure, yeah.
right? Okay. And then I would show you a little diagram as you click on the explanation that goes like this, and give them a formula to calculate, right? And then they'll have to work it out something, right? And then I would give them a little box where they can put in a parameter for doing the shot, apart from just aiming it, you know, with the keyboard. You put in the parameter, and when all the parameters are right, the shot gets done. Okay? And you find out there's a little, you know, every time you click, there's a little, you know, diagram with geometry in it, right? Because we're talking about cannonball. That specifies, okay, and give them the what you said, right? So explain to them about gravity. A guy called Isaac Newton, a really cool dude back in those days, invented this. And if you use this formula, you can calculate this and we'll get the ball in right now. So, but you need to tell me the number. This is how you work it out. Okay. So, but we try to hide all of that in a very, very subtle way. And this is where the game designer comes in, right? So it will achieve the purpose at the end. They will understand the formula, how to calculate it, but don't feel like they're doing the work on actually schoolwork. Right.
True.
And then,
true. It's like putting in different factors, right? Yeah.
right. So that's in the very beginning where they toss the cannonball with, let's say, you know, a little, a little
Like fuse.
yeah, like a Y shape, you know, springer thing.
A slingshot.
Slingshot, right?
Yeah, slingshot.
And then next time you upgrade it to a gun. So now when you shoot it, you're gonna feel more powerful because you're next level up. You know, now that you have a really cool gun with a nice skin and everything, right? But now you have a thing called recoil, just like you say, and now have a different formula for that. And now you have to redo the exercise you've just done to learn another set of formula. And this time there's another guy called something else who invented this. And after that, when you get up to level 10, you would have known momentum, inertia, mass, gravity, parabolic, you know, recoil, all of that stuff.
And a lot of calculation as well. Yeah.
And he would do it by hand because the computer do not allow him to just set this whatever. And then within the game, you would tell him, for example, the distance, how many meters between you and the object, right? And then it's kind of like a little pilot, you know, head-up display. When you aim your thing, where do you want to shoot? Okay, I want to shoot this guy. Okay, well, here's a distance, here's a wind speed, here's the direction, here's the north by northwest or whatever, right?
How do you reach him?
Right. And then, right? So
that sounds fun for me too, actually.
exactly, right? And then now when you get to the really high level, the object actually moves.
Oh yeah.
Okay? At a straight line, at this speed, at that velocity. How are you going to calculate between the timing of the shot to that, and to get in really advanced stuff? Now, can you imagine a kid after playing that game and leveled up, he could work at SpaceX. He'll be talking about specific impulse on a rocket launcher. And he would have the fun all the way. He can't stop talking about it. He'll be so inspired. And his eyes would twinkle. We want that kind of kid in our society, don't we? We would want to be that kid ourselves. And we can.
I would love to learn physics that way. I mean, I should actually try to teach physics that way.
Right.
Yeah.
And the same thing can be applied for geography, like Francis, right? Volcano. You'll be an adventurer. You go into the volcano, you're just about to drop, you got to work out the temperature, you're wondering when is it going to erupt, so what do you look for? Well, I know I need to get this little seismic meter, I've got a test, and I look at the reading, what does that mean?
Like escape from Pompeii, and then you learn about, like,
right,
history, and then also like how to, okay, like when the lava actually flow down, how hot it's going to be, how much people can save by running into different buildings. You don't even need to be one subject at that point.
So then what you can do is combine a series. Okay. So for 15 minutes, you'll be doing physics. And then you get to the next level. Oh, this one is a geography related. Next level will be chemistry related. Next
Mm.
level will be communication related. Next level will be that. And then every day, every kid will try to outdo each other from who reach a level first. And there'll be a
The
real time,
competition component.
scoreboard, right? And
Mm.
saying that, every single kid would be part of that.
And then you have like also a lobby that is created for, say, obviously you don't allow them to give them the solution, but then you can
Yeah.
have a lobby for people that sort of teach you how to do the calculation
There
by.
is no solution because every single kid would have a different experience, you see.
Mhm.
Every single kid is shooting a different object
It's
at a different
randomized.
distance, right?
Yes.
You
So you
see?
can't solve that,
Exactly.
and
And
unless
you
you actually know how to do it.
you completely remove the possibility of plagiarism.
And then you have a lobby of, I was just saying, it's the reason why I say lobby, right? Because like then you have a lobby of people, of like other players that
Yes.
you can actually go ask a question on.
Yeah,
It's like if they
exactly.
and then you
Right.
have essentially young tutors tutoring each other, that actually
Or
improve communications,
or learning from each other.
learning from each other. That actually is more important. How to be respectful. Well, maybe that will be the difficult part, but
Well, this is where they learn English and grammar. When
true.
you ask a question, if it's not the right sentence structure, doesn't get through.
Okay,
Does it? You press send, beep, 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 error, error.
we just put a
No.
Grammarly there. Like if there's
Yeah.
a grammar error, you don't get to send it.
Yeah, you don't get to send it,
Okay, but that's fair actually. That's
right?
fair. And then
So every
yeah.
single step, there's something that they need to learn. But if they want to, they will do it.
if they
And
want to play the game, they would. Yes.
yes, and you make it entertaining and you make it annoying. So when the error comes up, like a very ugly thing would come on and laugh at them and try to motivate them not to get the same guy again, because otherwise you're gonna throw the computer away. Right?
Don't put knife around them to solve problem.
Right?
Yeah.
So what is the problem, Anson, for introducing fun into the learning process? Why is it a sin? Why can it not be called a game? If the essence of the game is learning, why is it such a taboo word? Why is it such a sinful word? It is not, is what I'm trying to say.
That is not.
A knife can be the best thing for you to cook a meal, or it could kill you. The tool in and of itself is neither good nor evil. It's how you use the tool. So let's use the knife for some sushi tonight. It doesn't have to be in your bag.
That's true. The game doesn't have to harm your kids, so
Yes.
long as
Addiction
we create.
doesn't have to be bad. Addiction to learning could be good.
Addiction is
depend
just
on what
another
they're
word for
learning.
motivation,
Yes. Hyper motivation,
hyper motivation.
right? The type of thing that you get you to forget to sleep, forget to eat, forget to drink, forget to go to the toilet because you're so engrossed in experience. That's the whole essence behind it. Anson, you named the word right up there. It's about the experience.
It's about the experience.
What he hates is not school, it's the experience at school.
True.
And what he loves about a game is not the game, it's the experience of the game. How it makes him feel.
How it makes him
Self-esteem,
feel.
okay? Satisfaction, joy. Well, why are those elements mutually exclusive with learning? It's not. Because in the game, he is learning already.
That's true. There's a lot to learn in modern games in order to
Right.
play it.
Right.
Mhm.
So he had to learn, okay, how do I figure this out? He watches YouTube, even if I don't ask him. And he watches just enough to solve the problem. He goes in and solves the problem. Okay? He has so much discipline, it's not funny. You
For
think he
him, it's
doesn't have
important.
discipline? He has got loads of them.
Oh yeah.
You just have to press the right button to reveal it. So we all underestimate our kids, their intelligence, their motivation, their patience, their focus. We undervalue all of that, underestimate all of that, because we saw them in the wrong context. Get into their world and they will show you. And we're too big to get into their world. We're too proud to get into their world. We look down upon their world. We think that our world is the only world that is worth living in.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? In a few years, you're going to be living in their world whether you like it or not.
True.
You better be nice to them.
Same cycle goes through.
Right.
Well, that's. I think this is a good place to sort of end this one section. I think
Okay.
it's a very good conversation, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love today's like I said that finance and everything. Well,
Yeah.
let me put a stop to this.
Sure.